Hi guys, welcome to another Horizon Zero Dawn video, and in this one I'm going to be showing you guys how to get all the enemies or all machines scanned trophy, along with killing them so you can get all the other trophies for killing all types of machines. The first one is Watchers or are Watchers, and these guys you'll see them everywhere. I mean, you'll see them in missions, story missions, side missions, so it shouldn't be too problematic for you guys to get the kill. Just scan them and get the kill. They're easy to handle. Just one heavy attack usually takes them out. The next one is a Strider. Now these enemies, they have a blaze canister on their back. So after you have scanned them, shoot the blaze canister with a fire arrow, and they will, die after an explosion, or they'll just die due to burn damage over time. Now, you will see these enemies in main missions. Actually, the first main mission that you get from Rost is to go get 3 blaze canisters from Striders. So, quickly scan one and kill it for it to count as a kill. I don't really need to show locations for these enemies because they do show up in main missions a lot. And that's pretty much it for this enemy type. This is going to be a really long one, guys. Almost 30 minutes. I'm going to be completely throat dry by the end of this. So the next one is a Grazer. Now they have a blast canister as well. You'll find them right beside the Nora hunting grounds and all around the region, so I don't really need to show you a location. So when you're doing your trials, you can scan them and you can get an easy kill right away. The best way to take these enemies down is, again, to shoot their blaze canisters with fire arrows, and after a couple seconds they will explode and ignite and explode, and that should result in its death, and if it doesn't kill it, just hit it with a couple arrows to finish it off. That's pretty much it. The next enemy is a Scrapper. Now these enemies, they don't really have a weakness, but I show a location of where you can find them. You'll see them. You'll find them in story missions all the time in the wild, so it's not a big deal. Just take a quick scan, and the best way I found to deal with these enemy types is to use your fire arrows. Once you inflict fire damage or burning status on them, they will burn over time. All you have to do is run away and wait until they die. And hit them with a couple arrows. If they come close, feel free to melee them. Another easy strategy is to use your shock bombs from slings. Once they're stunned and on the ground, you can go in for a critical hit, and that should easily kill them. The next enemy is a Red Eye Watcher. The only difference between this Watcher and the normal Watcher is that the Red Eye ones have a little bit more health, and they hit harder. That's pretty much it. Exact same way you deal with other Watchers, shoot them with arrows if you want, stealth kill them, hit them with melee. 1 or 2 hits usually takes them down, or they're pretty simple, and you can usually find them in the desert area when you get to it. There's tons of them around the desert area, and I just show a location here. So you guys missed it, you can come and scan it and kill it quickly here. The next enemy is a Broadhead, and like most other acquisition machines, these ones they have blaze canisters on their back, so you can shoot the blaze canisters to ignite them and cause them burning damage with fire arrows, of course. And if they do charge at you, say if you're annoyed by the fact that they charge at you all the time, shoot their horns. Once both their horns are gone, they will lose the ability to charge at you. So the best way to destroy the horns is to use Tear Blast arrows. One should remove, one Tear Blast arrow, and both the horns will come off. The next enemy is a Lancehorn, and these enemies, they have a freeze canister on their back. So the best way I found to deal with them is to, use your freeze slingshot bombs. Once they're frozen, after a few seconds, the freeze canisters will explode, and it will actually automatically freeze anything that's around the area, within the surrounding area, and the Lancehorn itself, it'll be really slow. One thing you guys need to know is when you inflict freezing status on any enemy, they take more damage, and because their shell is weaker. So I would quickly switch into hardpoint arrows from the normal bow, or precision arrows from the sharp bow, and a couple arrows should easily take them down. That's pretty much it for this enemy. Most of the time they're docile, they run away. If they decide to attack you, these guys are insane because they have this attack where they instantly jump at you from a distance, and they drill their horns into you. Easy way to deal with these guys is to bait them to attack you with that attack where they jump at you, because if they miss you, what happens is their horns get stuck into the ground. They get drilled into the ground, and you get easy melee hits on them. The next enemy, the Longlegs, these guys are absolutely annoying, but the easiest way to take them down is to use shock bombs. 1 or 2 shock bombs, they will instantly go into a stun state, and that will give you access to free critical hits and melee damage. Now, sometimes I forget to scan them. That's because I've already scanned all of them, but if you're here based on the title, you're here to scan all the machines that you haven't scanned, so ideally you should be scanning them as you go. As you can see, 1 shock bomb, sometimes 2, will stun them, going for a critical hit. That's pretty much it. If they're still alive, follow the critical hit with a heavy attack, and you can loop them by hitting them with another stun bomb, and then you can continue to do this over and over again. The next enemy is called a Trampler. Now these guys are really dangerous, but I also like fighting these guys because they have a lot of weaknesses, which you can exploit. But the only one I'm going to be showing you how to exploit is their weakness is freeze. So immediately freeze them with your slingshot bombs. Once they're frozen, they will take more damage. So you can switch to your hardpoint arrows or your precision arrows and do a lot of damage on their body. But what I also like to do is use my Tear Blast arrows to hit their face. What this does is it removes their horns. Once their horns are gone, they basically lose the ability to charge at you, because that's one of the most annoying things about these enemies. They charge a lot, and they do a lot of damage if they hit you. So that's the easiest way to deal with these guys. Really cool enemy. The next enemy is a Sawtooth. By virtue, you will fight this enemy type in a story mission, one of the first few main story missions. So you can't miss this enemy. But in case you forget to scan it, here's another opportunity. I show you the location on the map. These enemies are extremely weak to fire, so I would suggest shooting them with fire arrows or fire bombs from slingshots. And once they start burning, give it a couple seconds, and they will automatically ignite the blaze canister that's underneath their belly. And that should take about 80% of their health, literally. Look at that one, it's almost gone. And burning damage does a lot. Like, burn status does a lot of damage over time, so if you really want to play the chicken game, you can inflict burn, run around, wait for them to die on their own, or you can switch to other arrows and shoot them down. I would advise not to use melee on these guys, just because when you get up close to them, the camera gets right up to their face, and it can be hard to see what they're doing. But that's pretty much it for these guys. You will face a more ferocious version of these guys called the Ravagers later on, but we'll keep that for later. Now the next enemy you're going to be fighting are really annoying. They're called the Shellwalkers, and this is due to the fact they have a shield claw on their arm, and they have a lightning gun, so they have both defense and range. The best way to deal with these guys is to use a Tear Blast arrow on both their arms, the one that carries the shield and one that carries the lightning gun. One Tear Blast arrow should normally remove both these components, so they're pretty much defenseless at the point, and they can't attack you from range. So the only way they can damage you is by, trying to jump at you or melee. So if you remove both of them, both of those abilities and components, you can easily kill these guys and take them out. That's it. That's pretty much it for these guys. Now, the next enemy you're going to be facing are fire Bellowbacks. Now, these Bellowbacks are one of the more tougher enemies, I would say, just because when you get far away from them, they shoot fire at you, and fire does a lot of damage to you. And if you get too close, they have fire spraying abilities, they have jumping abilities, they have swiping abilities, tail hitting abilities, so I'm not a fan of the way they've constructed this enemy type, but there are easy ways to deal with them. These fire Bellowbacks are extremely weak to freeze, so hit them with a couple freeze bombs, and that should ignite their blaze canister. Surprisingly, I don't know why it would ignite a blaze canister, but it does. If it doesn't ignite it, once they're frozen, either way, you can use your hardpoint arrows or precision arrows to do a lot of damage to take them down relatively, without too much pain. Other than that, these guys aren't that great a problem. The next one is called the Freeze Bellowback, and I don't really know the best locations to find these guys. So the easiest location that I found is in the second hunting ground, the Valley Meat hunting ground area. As soon as you come down the rope, the first one is a fire Bellowback, but the second one, if you go farther down the area, there's a freeze Bellowback. Now these guys, they work similar to the fire ones, and they're extremely weak to fire, so I would suggest using a firebomb or fire arrows to apply the burn status on them, and then just pelt them with the arrows, tripcaster ammo to, if they run and charge at you. But I'm just showing you the most efficient method that I use, and that I personally believe would be the best during the situation, because during a battle you don't want to like go into your inventory, switch to a weapon. It gets really tedious and annoying, so I'm just going to show you the easiest methods. Just once it comes out of the burn status, hit it with a couple more fire arrows, it'll get back on burn. That gives you some breathing room. I should have been using the fire bombs instead. I used the freeze bombs, but not too difficult. I mean, of course, early game, they are difficult because you don't have too much health, so you can't take too much damage from them. But later on, they're not too much of a problem. The next enemy are called Chargers. Now, these guys work similar to Broadheads. They have a blaze canister, I believe, on their back. So what you can do is, the moment you go and take a scan, shoot their blaze canister with a fire arrow. This will either ignite them, and if it doesn't, just hit them with a couple more arrows. And you can also use the sling bombs. Once they're on fire, you want to shoot their horns. Their horns are extremely, like a huge weak point to them. With a couple hits, they will either die, and if they don't die, they'll lose the horns and they'll lose the ability to charge at you. The next enemy are called Stalkers, and initially these enemies are really, really dangerous, but once you figure out their weakness, which is a shock, shock ammo, once you they become really, really easy. Like what you can do is you can stun lock them to death. So shock them, go in for a critical hit them with a melee attack, shock them again, hit them with a critical hit, and you can chain this to completely, destroy these guys. The next enemy is called a Glinthawk, and they're one of the airborne enemies in this game. And they can be really annoying the first time you fight them. And they absolutely thrashed me the first time. I stood no chance. But after I figured out what I could do, and I'm showing it to you guys right now, is to use your Tear Blast arrows. Those things are godly. So they have free sex on their necks. Now, ideally, you want to shoot your arrows at them, and it might take a couple shots to take down the free sex. But a couple Tear Blast arrows will always guarantee you a stun, because it will explode the free sack, it will stun the Glinthawks, and they'll fall on the ground. You can get a free critical hit and a melee hit, and you can continue to do this, and they will easily go down. Now, Corruptors, they show up in main missions multiple times. I already beat the game, so I can't show you a clip of me fighting them, but I do know they do show up in many main missions, and so you can scan them during that time. And the best way to take these guys down is to use fire. They're extremely weak to fire. This is a location I'm showing that you can find in free roam before you override the Tallneck here, because this area is, you know, guarded by Corruptor. There is a Corruptor that guards it. So they're extremely weak to fire, so just use fire arrows to get them on fire. Use ropecaster ammo to bring them down, and shoot their heat core, which is on their back of their head, with a hardpoint arrow, and, you know, they should be no problem. The next enemy is a Ravager, and these guys are extremely dangerous because their AI is very aggressive, and they also, if you try to run away too far away from them, they will shoot you with their Ravager cannon, which does decent amount of damage, but you know, you can just, they're easy to dodge. The best way I found out to deal with these guys is that they don't really have a weakness to their body. So what I do is I inflict fire damage on them. Once they start burning, it does decent damage over time, and then I switch to Tear Blast arrows, and I immediately take out the cannon. The reason I want the cannon out of the way is because I don't want them to shoot me while, you know, I'm running away from them, or I need some breathing room to heal. So after the burning status is done, I usually try to freeze them, so if they're still alive, and once they're frozen, they're more susceptible to damage, so you can do double damage on them to finish them off. And that's pretty much it for Ravagers. Easy way to take them down. The next one is called the Snapmaw, and these guys are really, really cool, and actually really, really easy to deal with. They're extremely weak to fire, and they have a blaze canister on their back to boot, so if they're in water, they won't get on fire, but if they're closer to the edge of the water, you can burn them. So the best way I deal with these guys is to use a couple arrows to get them start to get them burning. If they're already burning, I just run around and wait until the damage stacks over time, or they burn over time. If it's taking too long, I would just switch to a hardpoint arrow or precision arrow to take them down. But just be careful with their freeze blast, because they can hit you for really, really hard, a lot of damage. And if they come out of water, they pounce at you from ridiculous ranges, so be careful about that. Well, that's pretty much. Now the next enemy type is called the Rockbreaker, and this is my most hated enemy in the game. They're absolutely rage-inducing, and they literally waste your time. They're just a time sick in terms of fighting them, because they have full immunity to you, to whatever you do against them. Like this clip that I'm showing you how to deal with these guys is only long because it takes me that long to remove their ability to dig. The moment they come out of the ground and they lose the ability to dig, this fight becomes super easy, because they're weak to freeze. Once you freeze them, you can do the more damage to them, because they're weak. Their metal gets weakened by the freeze status. But just getting them out of the ground is an absolute chore. I wish these enemies were a little bit more balanced, because trust me, they're not extremely hard to fight when they're out of the ground. It's just when they're under the ground, it's hard to get them out. All they ever do is hide underground, run around, and even ropecaster ammo they have immunity to that, because you can tie them down. But the moment they go underground, all the ropecaster ammo all the ropes just break apart. So what's the point of having a weapon called a ropecaster that ties enemies down when it doesn't actually work on this specific enemy type? But I absolutely detest these guys, because they're a cool enemy type, sure, but they're just so annoying. They're just so, how do I say it? They're defensive. They just run around, run away from you, and then they strike you from underneath. It's such a cowardly way to fight, but it's like they don't need the help. They do a lot of damage without being so cheap. But guys, fighting these guys could take a long time. Let me just tell you, make sure you're well prepared. And anytime I see one of these guys, I just bolt it. I don't even bother fighting these guys, because they're absolutely rage-inducing. But like I said, when you fight them, or when you come up in contact with them, make sure you scan them, of course. I hope you guys don't fight these guys more than once, because they're absolutely annoying. But you see, they have 4 drilling arms. Well, 2 drilling arms and 2 drilling legs. You want to use your Tear Blast arrows to remove them as quickly as possible. The moment they lose all 4 drillable arms and legs, that's it. They lose the ability to dig, and this is the best. And at this moment, you're in charge. You can start doing the damage. But until then, you have to be defensive because these guys do a lot of damage, and if you get too far, they start shooting rocks at you at a wide arc. So it doesn't matter if you try to strafe them, you will still get hit. So I highly, highly suggest that you guys bring a couple potions, you know, dodge as much as you can, and use your Tear Blast arrows. If you really want to, try to get the Shield Weaver outfit, as it negates all types of damage for a limited amount of time as long as you're glowing blue. So there isn't an enemy I would suggest to use this, you know, that I would suggest the Shield Weaver is needed, the outfit is needed. But this enemy type, go ahead, use it on this enemy type. These guys are absolutely annoying. So at this point, I get annoyed. I'm like, what do I do? So I'm like, let's try the Ropecaster ammo. And you're gonna see that it doesn't work. I shoot them with a lot of Ropecaster ammo, and they still somehow break through it like it's nothing, and they start drilling. So I don't know what's a good and fast way to deal with these guys. It's absolutely annoying. Like I said, the best way is to just strafe around, run around in circles until they pop out of the ground, which who knows when they feel like doing it. And when they do, you can use your Tear Blast arrows to remove their, you know, their drilling arms and legs. And once they're on top, you can use your freeze bombs from your slings, because they're extremely weak to freeze. And once they're frozen, you can shoot their core with precision arrows, which should ignite them. And when they're on fire, they don't take too much damage, so I would suggest going back to freezing them. Once they're frozen, shoot their body, you know, with precision arrows and hardpoint arrows that do a lot of tear damage, and that should do tons of damage to take this enemy down. Did you see that? How long did that fight take when he was on the ground? Absolutely annoying. But moving on, the next enemy is called the Behemoth, and it's another acquisition type enemy. But don't let that fool you, because he does have a lot. It does have a lot of combat abilities. Now, the easiest way to take these guys down is to use your freeze bombs. They are weak to freeze, so once frozen, you can use your precision arrows to start shooting their canisters off of their head. Each time you take one off, it does a significant amount of damage to them. What I usually do is to just use my Tear Blast arrows to remove them, and look how much damage it did just for removing a couple of them down. And once you remove everything in the top up front, you can try to, you know, hit the freeze canisters, or you can just pelt them with hardpoint arrows and precision arrows. That's pretty much it. Now the Thunderjaw, one of my favorite enemies in the game. Absolutely stunning looking, and they're actually really fun to fight. They can be really challenging if you don't use the strategy I'm using, but the one I'm showing you, absolutely, it trivializes the fight. The Tear Blast arrows are way too powerful in my opinion. What you want to do is, as soon as you go into the fight, use 2 Tear Blast arrows to remove both the disc cannons on its back. Once it's done, to switch to your Ropecaster ammo, or Ropecaster, and tie it down. Tie it down, I would say, with about 5 to 6 ropes. Once it's tied down, go look for the disc cannon, the heavy weapon that you just detached from this enemy, and use that disc cannon to destroy this enemy. This is the fastest way to kill these guys. The disc cannon does so much damage that you won't even notice how long the fight is, because it'll go within a flash. Once you run out of ammo, I would suggest to tie them down again with Ropecaster ammo, and would say another 4 or 5 arrows. You don't need too many here. You just want the Thunderjaw to focus on something else other than you, because you want to go and grab that disc cannon without too much interference from this Thunderjaw. So once you grab that second cannon, it should you should have enough ammo to completely decimate this Thunderjaw. Well, that's it for this guy. The next enemy is a Stormbird. A lot of you have requested how to beat these guys, and there's not an easy way to fight this guy, fight the Stormbird, because it is an airborne enemy, and so there's a lot of randomness to how a fight could go. But one of the easier ways is to use a combination of ropecaster ammo, free sling bombs, and precision arrows. Now, initially, to bring it down, obviously you want to scan it to add it to your collection. You want to use an arrow to get its attention. Now, when it gets closer to you, you either want to keep shooting it with tear blast arrows to start removing components off its body, or if you want to be bold, you can go straight into using your ropecaster ammo to tie it down. The moment it falls down onto the ground, you can use your freeze bombs to freeze the enemy. Once frozen, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to it, so you can switch into your precision arrows and hardpoint arrows, and you can just pelt this enemy with as many arrows as you can to bring them down. Like, you can loop this enemy into this, how do I say this, into this, the best way to say it is you can loop them continuously into this strategy. So as you can see, I get tired of just shooting them, so I switch into my ropecaster, bring it down, freeze them, and then I start pelting it with arrows. Usually 1 or 2 times cycles of this, and you should take this enemy down with relative ease. There shouldn't be too much problems with this enemy. The first time you fight them, of course, you're not going to have too much help, but once you figure out a good strategy, you can take these guys down. You can see how much damage this thing does. Now, if you do a ton of damage while it's in the air, it will get stunned again, so it's just added benefit to taking these guys down. And that's pretty much it, guys. That enemy went down without too much trouble. The next enemy is a Deathbringer. Now, these enemies aren't very exciting to fight because there's only really one way to bring them down. And let's actually go to the fight in order to see how it pans out. Now, this enemy has a multitude of weapons in its arsenal, so I initially thought the best way to take them down would be to use tear blast arrows to remove these components off. But for some reason, this one enemy type, it just is so resilient that its components actually won't come off. You actually have to spend a lot of ammo on them to remove them. So I would suggest either to use shock or fire. The moment it starts burning, or the moment it starts, getting stunned, it will release all of its engine cores, which is its weak point, and that you have to shoot with a precision arrow or a hardpoint arrow to, destroy them. The moment you destroy one of these cores, it loses a lot of damage. So this is the best way to fight these guys, and I feel this is very lame because it would have been cooler if we could have detached some of its weapons quicker to do more damage. You can't even use your ropecaster ammo to tie it down. It automatically repels it. So, like I said, the best way to deal with these guys is to use shock or fire to get them, get that status affected on them. And then when eventually they do get tired on their own after shooting a lot, and they will expose their weak points, those cores you will be seeing in a couple seconds. You see those yellow cores that come out of their body? That's basically their weak point. You have to shoot them with hardpoint arrows or precision arrows, whichever one does more damage in your case, and you can just use them to take them. You can just target them, hit them, and if you do enough damage, it will explode, and that will cause enough damage on these guys. They're not very entertaining to fight because of those reasons, because I feel like they have too much armor on them. Like I must have put about 10 to 15 Tear Blast arrows, and I haven't been able to remove those cannons out. So goes to show that it's not worth it. It's not worth to fight these guys, especially on higher difficulties. You know, trying to remove them where all you have to do is basically strafe and dodge around them and wait until they get tired and you get to shoot their weak points. Otherwise, just use shock. Shock will instantly stun them, and you can target their weak points to take them out. That's it for these guys. The next enemy type isn't really an enemy, it's a Tallneck, but you still have to scan them for this trophy. So whichever Tallneck you're close to, just go scan them. They'll still be walking around even after you have overridden them, so you can just go back to them. Here I show an example where I just go back to the ones I already overrided, and I basically scan them, and that's it. It'll unlock an entry in the notebook. The next set of enemies are corrupted machines. Now, when you go into the entry, it doesn't really show anything except for their weakness is fire. So you will fight I don't really need to show a location where you fight these guys. They're always there in many story missions, and they will be there in corrupted zones. So just kill one after scanning it, and that's it. That should unlock the entry for these. These guys are really easy to take down. Put fire status on them, just run around and wait until they burn to death. Well, that's it, guys. This has been a really long video. It was fun making it. It's probably the longest video I'm going to be putting out on YouTube, so let me know how I did. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.